सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
For the past couple of days, I'd say 2.5 days, we've been seeing these really horrific and disturbing pictures of burning vehicles, burning property in vehicles because they're loaded with fuel. They have a lot of plastic and rubber inside them. They also burn sort of spectacularly. So these make really scary pictures. We've seen all these pictures coming out, and then you also see some of the areas where these are burning are quite scenic because you see green rolling hills in the background. In some places you also see skyscrapers. You figured out that I'm talking about the disturbances on the outskirts of Delhi, in the district of Mewat or the region of Mewat, what is now called mostly as the district of Nuh, but also the adjoining regions, adjoining tehsils, say of tehsils means subunits of a district, of districts of Palwal, Faridabad in Haryana. These disturbances have taken place there, and these have come into Gurgaon. Gurgaon is not far from Gurgaon, say to Nuh, which is the epicenter of this trouble. Gurgaon to Nuh is just about 35-40 kilometers. It's that close down one big highway. This is the one big highway that's now been widened. So you can get there in no time. That's why these riots have come so close to Gurgaon, which is the heart center of the booming new tech India, high-tech India, IT sector, millennium city, etc. So people of Delhi also have seen this trouble come right to their outskirts. So something that you thought happened far away in a place that we didn't know, or in some district of Eastern UP or maybe Western UP, some part of Bihar, maybe some part of Assam at some point, or lately Manipur, even further away, far away in the northeast. That has come next door to Delhi. Now, what's been happening there? It's a moving story. So a moving story is not the right time to cut the clutter on what's happening, because there is a lot of clutter and a lot of clarity is still to emerge. It's a moving story. And it's a story that's been covered very well, I'd say, of course, I would say brilliantly by our team. So you can see stories by Sushil Manav, who heads our Haryana coverage. He's based in Gurgaon. He's been traveling around, a very experienced journalist. See his stories. I'm sharing some links with you. There are also stories by Bismi Taskin, Urjita Bhardwaj, pictures also by Urjita, by Praveen Jain, and Sagrika Kisu, who besides all other work also keeps a special eye on Delhi's suburbs, of what we call as the NCR region, the National Capital Region. Now you've seen these riots. Generally we know the story that a Hindu religious procession was going from one temple to the other. It's an annual pilgrimage that's been on for 4 years. There were provocative statements made by some Hindu quote-unquote leaders claiming to be from Bajrang Dal, basically defiant statements saying, "Main aa raha hu, I'm coming, you can do what you want." And then there were counter-defiant statements by many Muslims of the region, and ultimately there was communal rioting, stones were thrown, 6 persons have died as yet. Hopefully no more will die. Now, how it happened, who did first, who did what first, all that will come out in our reports. And please do track our coverage as we go on investigating what happened, and also as the police comes up with more FIRs and more findings. Meanwhile, it's important, I thought, also to understand what region are we talking about, because usually you would have thought that in the northwest of India, particularly in what used to be Punjab, partition was total, that almost the entire lot of Muslims from the Indian side were driven to Pakistan, or they migrated to Pakistan, and almost the entire lot of Hindus in what turned out to be West Pakistan moved to India. That was unlike the partition in the eastern area. In the eastern zone, not all Muslims left Bengal and Assam to go to Pakistan, or what was then East Pakistan. Not all Hindus left East Pakistan to come into India. So partition in the east was partial right? Partition in the north and the west was total. So there to imagine that you have one region or at least one district which is predominantly Muslim, it looks counterintuitive, and it is counterintuitive because it's not just Muslim majority. The percentage of Muslims in what is now called Nuh district, it used to be called Mewat district, the Muslim population is almost 80%. Now, how did this happen? How did this enclave come up and flourish as almost an exclusive Muslim enclave? Because over time, if we've seen data from census for 71, 81, 91, 2001, 2011, unfortunately, we haven't had a census since. That data tells us that decade on decade, the percentage of Muslims has risen in the district and the percentage of Hindus has declined, partly also because a lot of the Hindus have left, but mostly because the numbers of Muslims have grown. Birth rates in this district are very high, and I will give you some of that data. So in the process, this phenomenon of the district called Mewat has come in, which is, as I said counterintuitively earlier, which is a Muslim majority district in northwest India, or what used to be Punjab. Now there's one more region in what used to be earlier Punjab, which has a Muslim majority, and that is Malerkotla in Punjab. Now Malerkotla in Punjab almost always has a Muslim MLA. It has a Muslim majority, but that is a different story. Many Muslims stayed back in Malerkotla, or in fact most Muslims stayed back in Malerkotla because there was an old compact and they had a blessing from the Gurus, because it was the Nawab of Malerkotla and his people who sheltered the Guru's children when they were being chased by the Mughals, right? So the Gurus had given their blessing to Muslims of Malerkotla that they will be safe in the Punjab. I'm consciously saying in the Punjab because when we say in the Punjab, we mean the entire Punjab. Once Punjab got partitioned, then there is Western Punjab, the Pakistani Punjab, and Eastern Punjab, that is Indian Punjab. So these Muslims stayed back even at partition time, and while deadly riots took place in Punjab and Muslims were targeted on this side of Punjab and Sikhs were targeted on that side of Punjab, these Muslims were protected. These Muslims constitute one enclave in Punjab, and actually they account for most of Punjab's Muslim population, which is just 1.9%, less than 2% of Punjab. That gives you an idea of how complete partition was. Haryana, which was then part of Punjab, again almost had a similarly complete partition, and I will just give you data to indicate how complete it was. Within that, in the Mewat region, Mewat was a region. It was like a district, several tehsils or talukas or sub-talukas, as you might call them in other parts of the country, in Punjab then, and some adjoining regions, say of Bharatpur and Alwar districts in Rajasthan, where this population of Muslims of a particular, I won't say ethnic, but I would say cultural extraction called Mayos lived. Now, Mayos were a bit different from other Muslims in northwestern India, because until the end of 19th century, in fact, until the beginning or until the early parts of 20th century, they did not even follow most tenets of Islam. They mostly did not say their namaz. They very often had Hindu names. They had Hindu customs for their wedding. There was a lot of intermarrying within the same caste. If this person from the same caste, never mind if the person from the same caste was a Hindu, etc., etc. This began to change around the middle of the 20th century. And I will come to that in a little more detail. But the fact is that while a lot of the Mayos left during the partition, many stayed back. And one reason they stayed back was that these riots were taking place next door to Delhi, just as these ones are taking place now. And you know, what happens next door to Delhi wakes everybody up. So Nehru, the government, Mahatma Gandhi, they all woke up. Mahatma Gandhi intervened personally and protection was sent out. And the remaining Mayos were reassured that they should stay on in India, nothing will happen to them, and that's how a large Mayo population stayed on. Now, if you want to see how unusual the district of Mewat is, see the distribution of Muslim population in Haryana. 7% of Haryana's population is Muslim. I told you, little less than 2% of Punjab's population is Muslim. 7% of Haryana's population is Muslim. Of the Muslim population in Haryana, about 48% live in what is called as Nuh district, or what used to be Mewat district earlier. But again, if you see the adjoining district, Meo tehsils in the adjoining districts, say Palwal, Faridabad, many of them live there also. So if you look at the map of Haryana, based on the distribution of Muslims there. So first of all, I tell you the districts by way of the percentage of Haryana's Muslims that they have. Now there's a distinction between the two maps I will show you. See the first one. 10 of the 22 have less than 1% of Haryana's Muslims. Remember, there's a distinction I'm making because I will just show you a second map that will tell you something else. Less than 1% of Haryana's Muslims, which means these districts have very few Muslims in Haryana. 10 of the 22 districts of Haryana, these are Sirsa, Fatehabad, Kaithal, Rewari, Rohtak, Bhiwani, Charkhi Dadri, Jhajjar, Kurukshetra and Mahendragarh. And these are sort of spread across the state, north, south, more towards the west, etc. That's why when you look at other parts of Haryana, the distinction becomes so striking. So if you look at the share of Haryana's Muslim in the districts, then Nuh district, which is former Mewat or most of the former Mewat, that has 48.4%. I told you nearly 50%, 48.4% of all of Haryana's Muslims. And even the adjoining districts, Palwal, Faridabad and Gurugram, they have 11.7%, 9.1% and 4% respectively. Then you come to districts that come next to Gurgaon or Gurugram now, say Jhajjar and Rewari, both border Gurgaon. There, the Muslim population falls at once to 0.5% and 0.3% of Haryana's Muslims. That is the skew in Haryana. Then, if you look at the other map, this map tells you the percentage of Muslims in the population of each Haryana district, which is Muslim. Now, again, the distinction would be that these are not just Haryana's Muslims. These might be Muslims who might have come from, say, UP, Bihar, laborers, others to work there or other parts of the country. So, even including that, 9 districts in Haryana have less than 1% of Muslims. But in Nuh district, it's nearly 80%. It's 79.2%. And this is as per census 2011. As we go along, I will tell you that Meos of Mewat, the Muslims of Mewat, have a very high fertility rate. So chances are that what was 79.2% in 2011 already is very well upwards of 80%, maybe closer to 85% by now. I will give you the data. So once again, if you look at the percentage of Muslim population in each district, 2011 census it is. Nuh was 79.2%, adjoining Palwal was 20%, Gurugram was 4.7% and Faridabad 8.9%. Again, the same cluster of districts, and these are the districts where these riots have taken place right now. Now look at some data which is socioeconomic data, more socio than economic. Look at education or female education and see how far out Mewat is on the wrong side. How far out Mewat is compared to the rest of the country, compared to the rest of Haryana. If you see women's education, women with more than 10 years of schooling in the age group of 15 to 49, that's the relevant group. In the 15 to 49 age group, women with more than 10 years of schooling, all India average is 35.7%. All this data is according to 2 National Family Health Surveys. 2015-16, that is NFHS 4, National Family Health Survey 4, and 2019 to 21, that is National Family Health Survey 5, NFHS 5. So NFHS 4, all India average percentage of women who had done more than 10 years of schooling was 35.7. It rose by 2021 in NFHS 5 to 41%. In Haryana, Haryana stays ahead of India. In Haryana, it was 45.8%. It went up to 49.5%. Quite impressive. In Mewat, on the other hand, Mewat started out with 12.6%. 12.6% is almost one-fourth of Haryana, almost one-fourth of Haryana, and almost one-third of the national average. They started at 12.6%. They rose, but very marginally, unfortunately. They rose to 13.9% in NFHS 5. Again, stay with me on fertility. India's total fertility rates, the latest data tells us, again NFHS, and then confirmed by WHO and Pew, the UN population report, all of them. India's total fertility rate has now come to 2 and is falling at 2 and declining, which means India has now reached replacement levels. That is India. Indian Muslims, there is a wide belief that Muslims produce a lot more babies than Hindus. Yes, they are still producing more babies than Hindus, but only a few more. It's not as if they are breeding at a very high rate. So if Hindus have total fertility rate, that is the number of babies a woman will produce, average woman will produce in the age group of 15 to 49. If that is 2 for the Hindus, it's 2.36 for Indian Muslims, and it's declining as it is for the Hindus. In Haryana, the birth rate or total fertility rate is even better than the national average. It's 1.9. For Haryana's Muslims, it's 3.87. For all of India's Muslims is 2.36. For Haryana's Muslims is 3.87, and that is mostly skewed, almost entirely skewed by the mayors living in the region of Mewat, which is now in the district of Nuh, and the adjoining regions of Gurgaon, Faridabad, Palwal, and some parts of Alwar and Bharatpur districts of Rajasthan. Now with this, I will give you yet another interesting metric. That is, this is the current fertility rate. What is the fertility rate that people would desire? Because these surveys, NFHS, etc., also ask women, how many babies do you really want to have? And that gave you what is called the desired fertility rate or wanted fertility rate. So India has come down to 2, but All India survey showed that the desired fertility rate in India is 1.6. That means if you interviewed 20 women, they wanted between them no more than 32 children. That is the desired fertility rate of 1.6. Again, if you asked the Hindus of India, then the desired fertility rate was 1.6%. If you ask the Muslims of India, this is nationwide figures, the desired fertility rate or wanted fertility rate among Muslims, because women are getting more educated, women are getting more conscious, that was only 1.8%. So that is also below replacement level. While Haryana Muslims fertility rate already is 3.87 and women do desire to have fewer babies, if you ask the women if they had a choice, but still the desired rate is 2.85%. That is more than 1.5 times of what Muslim women desire nationally. Come to the next chart. That is multidimensional poverty for the district of Mewat compared to the key districts in Haryana and also nationally. If you see the comparison with other districts of Haryana, then say the district of Fatehabad, which is sort of in the southwest of Haryana, going towards Punjab, going towards Firozpur, Fazilka, in that area. If you go to Fatehabad, it has come down from 11% to 7.5%. That is multidimensional poverty according to the latest Niti Aayog report. In Jind, which is in the heartland and along the Grand Trunk Road, in the Green Revolution belt of Haryana, it used to be 9.2%. It has come down to 7.4%. For all of Haryana, it used to be 11.9%. In the last survey, it's now come to 7.1%. 7.1% for the state. See, on the other hand, what's happening with Mewat. In Mewat, it was, while the rest of Haryana began at 11.9% at the time of the last survey. So for simplicity of understanding, when the last survey was done in 2015-16, Mewat had 5 times, in fact a little more than 5 times as many people under multidimensional poverty as the rest of Haryana. Now they've made an improvement, they've made a sizable improvement. They've come down from 62.5% to 40%. Yet even that improvement still makes them almost 6 times as bad as the rest of Haryana. All of Haryana has 7%, which by the way is also negatively loaded because it also carries the weight of the Mewat district. If you took out Mewat district, the rest of Haryana might be 5% or below 5%. But Mewat still has more than 40% people below multi-dimensional poverty. And you can see similarly some of the adjoining districts also in the same chart. You can see Palbal, which is a neighboring district, Faridabad, again a neighboring district. Again, they made improvements. Their figures are much better than Mewat, but their figures are worse than most of the other districts of Haryana. And the main reason there is that each one of these districts also has a Mayo population. This tells you what an unusual region this is. Now, we are not making any judgment on who's to blame, who did what. As I said earlier, all of that will come out in our stories. But I'm just painting a portrait, a socio-economic portrait of a very interesting region for you. Very interesting region, very difficult region, which is very close to Delhi and yet very distant. And that's why it is so difficult to understand. Now, many stories have been done about this region. In fact, we've done a story about how this region has become the new Jamtara, in the sense that there is a lot of cybercrime happening from here. You can see that story. There is also a story that my colleagues Jyoti Yadav and Sajid Ali Mir did from the same district. This was at a time when the Tablighi Jamaat controversy was going on in the first wave of COVID. Now, most people don't realize that Tablighi Jamaat was actually founded in Mewat. It was founded in Mewat by Maulana Muhammad Ilyas somewhere around mid-1920s. Mid-1920s was a very interesting period in India, particularly for the growth, for the evolution of political Islam, because that's when the Khilafat movement had taken place. Also for Hindu-Muslim relations. It's around that time that this devout Muslim who said, look, what kind of Muslims do I have in this area? What kind of Muslims are the Mayos? They follow so many Hindu rituals. They don't even know how to read the Kalma, most of them. They don't do namaz. So let me teach them. So he started incentivizing them to do their namaz, to visit the mosques. He had the first madrasa built, and then he figured that maybe this wasn't the best way of getting people to become more devout and more devoutly practicing Muslims. And he thought maybe a good way was then to move out, go from place to place and sort of evangelize the idea. And that's how he founded what came to be known as the Tablighi Jamaat. So Tablighi Jamaat that you hear about all the time was actually founded in Mewat. And again, I told you it's a fascinating region. It's also a region that's always been rebellious. In fact, even in Mughal times, it was also fighting with the Mughals, against the Mughals. In the first battles against Babur, the first Mughal conqueror, and later even against Akbar, the Mayos joined this side on the Indian side, on the native side, fighting with the invader. In 1526 against Babur, it was actually Hasan Khan Mewati. Hasan Khan Mewati was actually a Muslim Rajput who with his army went and joined in with Rana of Sanga in the Battle of Khanwa and died there. So the big medical college that's been built now in Mewat, in fact in Nalhad, the exact village where this famous Shiv temple is located, where this rioting took place, that big medical college is named Shahid Hasan Khan Mewati Medical College in Shahid. Why? Because he died fighting Babur on behalf of Rana Sanga in the Battle of Khanwa. So it's a very complex region. Once again, in the second Battle of Panipat, when Akbar came in with Bairam Khan and Hemu or Raja Hemchandra was ruling Delhi, then the Mayos and their rulers and chiefs then joined in forces with Raja Hemchandra or Hemu in that battle as well. And after that, the region also suffered at the hands of the Mughals. And if I look at references from history, that a lot more conversion also took place at that time. So once again, this is a very complex region. This is also a fascinating region. And the important thing is, it is just next door to Delhi. What is sad is that the only reason we become conscious of this district right now is the unfortunate spark of these riots.